Welcome to Drinks with Ron. I'm Ron. Hey, everybody. And I'm once again on location at my brother's house where I have purloined for my drink some water and ice. Why, you ask? Because I wanted to say purloined. Don't really have a point. I'm on lunch break. It's been a busy day, and I just needed a beverage. But I thought as long as I got you here, I don't know, you may have noticed the episodes are starting to space out a little bit. We aren't quite as consistent here at Drinks with Ron. The staff, which is me, just hasn't had time for it. No, sir, what most of my energy and productivity have gone towards in the last few weeks is the podcast game. So if you haven't, go get on Google or tune in. Not yet Spotify or Pandora. I'll get to that later. But we're on Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Podbean. We're on like 5 or 6 podcasting apps. So we're available. The name you're looking for is The Half-Assed Podcast. That features me and friend of the show, Derek, talking generally. It's a sports-centric, sports-adjacent podcast. We talk about a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of sports, but we don't necessarily stay there. And our offshoot brand, which is the Fantasy Podfathers, features me and Jonah going over strictly fantasy football, specifically dynasty football. So if you've never played Dynasty before and you thought maybe you'd want to try, but you want to know what the hell's going on, or if you're in a Dynasty, maybe you're over your head and you haven't quite got the hang of it, or if you're in a Dynasty and you know what you're doing and you'd just like to hear some other perspective. Any of those scenarios, I suggest you go find the Half-Assed Podcast, and then in its feed will be the Fantasy Podfathers. That may not be the case for long, because I'm about to ratchet it up a little bit. I'm going to actually put money down and be a premium podcast, which means we'll have unlimited hours to put in the database, and it will automatically add us to Spotify. So then we will be in all the heavy hitters. I think we're still waiting on approval from Pandora. Got Mike Pence. The fly version of Mike Pence as a verb. There's some other versions of that I wouldn't want to partake in as a verb or anything else. But let me digress. Once the upgrade becomes official, I think we will actually be splitting the Fantasy Podfathers off onto their own channel. So if that's the case, for right now though, still search the Half-Assed Podcast. And for your Dynasty needs, we'll be in the thread. But once we break off, that will be the Fantasy Podfathers. Now, once I'm able to have multiple channels, I don't want to stop there. I want to keep the ball rolling. You see, the thing is, I'm a little bit ADD, just a little bit OCD, and there may be some bipolar thrown in there. So I get on these manic streaks where I have all this creativity and productivity and energy, and I just need an outlet to put it. The problem is I usually hook up with a person and do a project, and my excitement long outlasts theirs. They become tired of the project. I become tired from doing all of the lifting, and it expires. But the beauty of this podcast thing, and as I said, the forthcoming multiple channels, is I will be able to get a separate co-host for each channel. So even if, people go through their phases where they've got real life shit going on and they don't have time for recording and playing fucking patty cake, odds are one of my other 2 or 3 co-hosts will still be ready to rock, and I'll be able to keep that mojo going. Take advantage of those manic streaks, man, because when I'm in them, I can produce a ton of shit. Shit being the key word. But once I kind of come off of that and I'm down, man, I'm down. I don't do fucking nothing. So I want to try to keep that going. And that being the case, I'm starting to, like, the third podcast, I actually thought about just doing Drinks with Ron, but having guests. So each podcast, 45 to an hour, and it'd just be me having a guest probably on the Skype line and having some drinks. Probably more focusing on the drinks. Who knows? But that's the tentative idea for the third channel, is Taking Drinks with Ron podcast. As I said, that would exclusively be with guests. And then this little entity would still be me flailing to myself to a camera that is being held in place with a camera stand, which is actually a plant. The leaf may or may not be in the shot. Yeah, but that's an ivy that I'm using as a camera holder, which sucks. That's also my clock. And as I said, I'm on lunch break, so I can't get too rambly today. But I'll close up telling you about the fourth iteration of the podcast. I don't have it set up yet, but I think I've selected a name. I've got an idea for the picture logo for it, and now all I need to do is line up guests. I'm kicking myself because last week, a buddy of mine, who shall remain nameless, started dropping me messages, and they were a little goofy, even for my buddy, a little off the reservation. He's probably drinking. So he comes back about 10 minutes later, and he's like, sorry, dude, I'm tripping my balls off. So then, I kind of start fucking with them a little bit, because that's what you do to tripping people, right? I haven't always had good experience with that. One time back in the day, I got off work and showed up at a place where everybody was tripping. And I thought, I'll mess with them. And apparently, somebody asked me a question, so I'd comedian answer. And apparently the question was serious and didn't go over well. I apparently really brutalized one of the girls in the room. So it was like, sorry, I wasn't trying. I thought, I'm fucking with tripping people. I guess if you're not on their level, maybe you don't know how to interact. But that's what I'm aiming to find out, because once that opportunity passed, the next morning I went, shit, why did I not get him on Skype and interview the shit out of him? 40 minutes with a guy like mid-trip. I thought this would be amazing. So that is going to be my fourth podcast. It is tentatively titled The Couch is Melting, and it's just going to be me interviewing various people who are tripping. Finding guests, I think, is going to be a problem. I don't think I know a lot of people who are tripping fairly regularly, so I've thrown the invitation out, but, I'm not getting any takers. I might have to kind of open that up to people I don't know, which will kind of affect the interview, man. I don't really want to be doing a get-to-know-you deal while you're tripping your balls off, but anyway, that's what I'm looking at. The four podcasts, the Half-Ass Podcast, the Fantasy Podfathers, Drinks with Ron the podcast, and The Couch is Melting, where I interview tripping people. I think it's a great lineup. Hopefully, there's enough mojo there to keep it going. So I think I need one more co-host who's invested in this to kind of make sure that there's always somebody else matching my level of excitement, because once it dips, man, it's like I go quick. Once there ain't somebody else there shoveling coal in the old idea engine, I peter out and go do something else. So, speaking of that, I think I'm going to go do something else, like eat some lunch. So for Drinks with Ron on location, I'm Ron, signing off.